Recording in progress.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us for this virtual public meeting for the Environmental Impact Statement, or EIS, for the SpaceX Starship-Super Heavy launch vehicle at Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center in Merritt Island, Florida. My name is Jennifer, and I will serve as your facilitator this evening. Please note that we are transcribing tonight's meeting, and you can turn on live captioning if you would like to read the verbal dialogue. To turn on closed captions, click on the CC icon that says Live Transcript at the bottom of your screen, then click Show Subtitles to view the closed captioning and hide subtitles to turn them off. At this time, I'd like to go over the agenda we will be following this evening. This meeting will be conducted in 3 parts. First, we will start with a few introductions. Then we will move into an FAA pre-recorded presentation. The presentation will go over the project history and location, FAA's review of SpaceX's proposed operation, summarize FAA's analysis of potential impacts to environmental resources, the environmental review process and schedule, and how you can comment on the draft EIS. Then we will begin accepting formal public comments. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and formal comments will be captured by a court reporter. If you do not wish to be part of this recorded public meeting, please disconnect from the call. I'd like to take a minute or two to review the features that we will be using during our Zoom webinar this evening. At any time during the meeting, if you need assistance with the Zoom platform, you can use the chat feature located at the bottom of your screen to message the meeting host. When we get to the video presentation portion of tonight's meeting, the small green box at the top of your screen that appears when the Zoom host begins screen sharing may get in the way of the presentation. Please note that you have the ability to click and drag that box to ensure you can see the entirety of the video screen. Please make note of the phone number for this meeting. The phone number is 1-888-788-0099, meeting ID 892-9206-9685, password 095859. If you experience difficulty with your internet connection at any point during the meeting, you can call this number to listen to the meeting. Additionally, individual internet connections and bandwidths vary and may impact your viewing experience. We recommend closing all apps and programs and limiting other streaming or downloads while you're participating in this meeting. Finally, we're running this meeting using Zoom Webinar, which mutes all participants and restricts video feeds. At this time, I'd like to introduce the 3 FAA representatives who will be participating in this evening's meeting: Eva Long, Amy Hansen, and Chelsea Clarkson. All 3 are environmental protection specialists in the Operations Support Branch in the Office of Commercial Space Transportation with the FAA. Thanks for being with us tonight, Eva, Amy, and Chelsea. For any media representatives that have joined this evening, please contact the FAA press office at pressoffice@faa.gov. This public meeting is the last of 5 public meetings. The FAA previously held 4 in-person meetings in Florida last week. The dates and locations of the in-person meetings, along with the virtual meeting tonight, are shown on this slide. Although multiple public meetings are being conducted, the same content is being presented at each meeting. Additionally, all information related to the draft environmental impact statement is available on the project website at www.faa.gov/space/stakeholder-engagement/SpaceX-Starship-KSC. And we'll put this website address into the chat. This meeting serves to provide the public with an opportunity to become familiar with the proposed project and provide comments. These comments will be part of the official record, and a summary will be included in the final EIS. You can submit your comments in 3 ways. First, you can provide verbal comments this evening during tonight's meeting, which will be recorded by a court reporter. Second, you can visit regulations.gov and search for docket ID FAA-2024-1395 to submit comments directly online. You can also include attachments. Third, you can mail written comments to Ms. Eva Long, FAA Environmental Protection Specialist, care of Leidos, 2877 Guardian Lane, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23452. You only need to submit comments once. The FAA will respond in the final EIS to all substantive comments postmarked or received by no later than September 22nd of 2025. Substantive comments are those that identify potential alternatives, information, and analyses relevant to the proposed action. All substantive comments received, regardless of format, will be given full and equal consideration. Again, please note that this meeting is being recorded and formal comments will be captured by a court reporter. If you do not wish to be part of this recorded public meeting, please disconnect from the call. At this time, we will begin the video presentation, which is about 30 minutes long. Thank you.
Welcome to the Federal Aviation Administration's, or FAA's, public meeting for the Draft Environmental Impact Statement, or EIS, for the SpaceX Starship-Super Heavy Launch Vehicle at Launch Complex 39A, or LC-39A, at Kennedy Space Center, known as KSC in Merritt Island, Florida, also known as the Draft EIS. This video will provide an overview of the proposed project. The FAA is evaluating Space Exploration Technologies Corporation's, or SpaceX's, proposed operation of the Starship-Super Heavy Launch Vehicle at LC-39A at KSC in Merritt Island, Florida. For operations at LC-39A, SpaceX must obtain a new license or modification of their existing vehicle operator license from the FAA for the Starship-Super Heavy launch and landing operations. The proposed project also includes up to 44 Starship Super Heavy launches per year, up to 44 Super Heavy landings per year, to include landings at LC-39A, landing on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean, or expending in the Atlantic Ocean, up to 44 Starship landings per year, to include landings at LC-39A, landing on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean, or soft water or hard water landing with expending or recovery in the Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, or Indian Ocean, and construction of launch, landing, and other associated infrastructure at and in proximity to LC-39A. The FAA would need to authorize additional temporary airspace closures to accommodate launch and re-entry operations at LC-39A. Therefore, the FAA has analyzed the potential environmental impacts of these proposed operations in the draft EIS. The completion of the environmental review process does not guarantee that the FAA will issue a license to SpaceX. SpaceX must also meet the FAA's safety, risk, and financial responsibility requirements. The National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, is a federal law that requires federal agencies to consider the potential environmental impacts of proposed actions subject to federal control or responsibility before a decision is made. FAA decisions to license commercial space operations and to close associated airspace are proposed actions subject to NEPA. Agencies follow a rigorous process before making a final decision. This process includes consideration of a reasonable range of alternatives, potential environmental impacts, public input, tribal or government consultation, and comments provided on draft documents. The analysis of environmental consequences can be presented in an EIS. An EIS is a document used to describe the anticipated environmental impacts of an action and determine whether the action has the potential to significantly affect the human environment. The NEPA process concludes when the FAA publishes a Record of Decision, or ROD. LC-39A at KSC was previously cited for Starship Super Heavy activities through NASA's Final Environmental Assessment, or EA, for the SpaceX Starship and Super Heavy launch vehicle at KSC, which resulted in a finding of no significant impact, or FONSI. The 2019 NASA EA was not adopted by the FAA because SpaceX did not apply to the FAA for a commercial launch vehicle operator license at that time, and FAA had no federal action to consider. In accordance with the 2019 NASA EA, SpaceX has undertaken infrastructure improvements at LC-39A. The Starship-Super Heavy concept of operations has been updated and is evaluated in this EIS. The purpose of Starship-Super Heavy at LC-39A is to provide greater mission capability to NASA and other SpaceX customers. SpaceX's activities would continue to fulfill the United States' expectation that increased capabilities and reduced space transportation costs will enhance exploration and support U.S. leadership in space. Starship-Super Heavy at LC-39A is needed to satisfy government and public interests and reduce operational costs. The figure on this slide provides an overview of the FAA's licensing process for vehicle operators. The illustration showcases the different reviews that occur during each phase of the licensing process. The issuance or modification of a license, including renewals, by the FAA is considered a major federal action under NEPA. Thus, the FAA is analyzing the environmental impacts of the proposed issuance of a commercial launch vehicle operator license for SpaceX Starship-Super Heavy at LC-39A at KSC in Merritt Island, Florida, as well as temporary closure of associated airspace in an EIS. The FAA's license determination process involves several aspects, which include policy, location, safety, payload, and environmental review. This EIS would fulfill the environmental review portion of the license evaluation and determination. The completion of the environmental review process, or the NEPA process, does not guarantee that the FAA will issue a license to SpaceX. Once the FAA does make a licensing determination, SpaceX may be required to meet additional monitoring and safety inspection requirements. The proposed action would take place at the NASA-owned, SpaceX-leased launch site located on northern KSC property, approximately 3 miles east of NASA's Vehicle Assembly Building, pictured on the left of this slide. LC-39A currently supports Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy launches. Following completion of the 2019 NASA EA, SpaceX began developing a site within the perimeter of LC-39A for Starship-Super Heavy launch operations, intended for future Starship-Super Heavy missions. SpaceX would continue to launch Falcon missions at LC-39A while Starship-Super Heavy is operational. The Starship-Super Heavy vehicle is comprised of 2 stages. Super Heavy is the first stage, or booster, and Starship is the second stage. The fully integrated Starship-Super Heavy vehicle is approximately 150 meters, or 500 feet tall, and 9 meters, or 30 feet in diameter. As designed, both stages are intended to be fully reusable for multiple missions and expected to have minimal post-flight refurbishment requirements, with any potential refurbishment actions taking place at SpaceX facilities at KSC. Starship is equipped with 9 Raptor engines, and Super Heavy is equipped with up to 35. The Raptor engines are powered by liquid oxygen, or LOX, and liquid methane. The below table provides specifications of the vehicle as analyzed in the draft EIS. The displayed table provides specifications of the proposed Starship and Super Heavy static fire engine tests. During a static fire engine test, the vehicle engines are ignited for a short duration of up to 15 seconds, generating a heat plume, and then shut down. The goal of a static fire engine test is to verify engine control and performance. Under the proposed action analyzed in the draft EIS, SpaceX would conduct 1 static fire engine test per launch, 44 total static fire tests per stage, for a total of 88 per year. Static fire engine tests would be conducted during the daytime. Daytime refers to the hours of 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. The table on this slide provides specifications of the proposed Starship and Super Heavy launches and landings. Starship-Super Heavy would launch from LC-39A up to 44 times per year. Launches could occur at any time of day or night. For purposes of analysis, it was assumed that 22 launches would occur during the day and 22 launches would occur at night. Each Starship-Super Heavy orbital launch would include separately landing Starship and Super Heavy at LC-39A. Super Heavy could also land on a drone ship or be expended in the Atlantic Ocean, while Starship could also land on a drone ship in the Atlantic or be expended in the Atlantic, Pacific, or Indian Ocean. For purposes of analysis, it was assumed that 22 landings would occur during the day and 22 landings would occur at night for each stage of the Starship-Super Heavy vehicle. During a launch, engine ignition would generate a heat plume that would dissipate within minutes. A flame diverter or similar infrastructure would reduce potential effects of the plume, and deluge water would be released to cool the launch mount and diverter as the launch occurs. Launches would result in noise and vibration, and nighttime launches would require lighting. In order to establish a safe and secure environment for static fire tests, launches, and landings, SpaceX, NASA, and the FAA, in collaboration with other federal, state, and local agencies, will implement security procedures such as traffic checkpoints, access control checkpoints, maritime closures, airspace closures, and other security sweeps. During flight, Super Heavy would separate from Starship and perform a controlled descent to the tower at LC-39A to be caught with the tower's arms. Once near the landing location, Super Heavy would ignite its engines to conduct a controlled landing. As Super Heavy slows down during its landing approach, a sonic boom would be generated. Super Heavy could also land on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. SpaceX intends Super Heavy to be fully reusable and return to LC-39A following operational flights. However, vehicles that will not be reused would be expended in the Atlantic Ocean. Starship would land at LC-39A or on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. Starship would perform a controlled descent to its landing location. As Starship slows down during its landing approach, a sonic boom would be generated. Early program launches could require expending Starship in the broad open ocean as depicted in the images on this slide. The FAA is the lead federal agency for this EIS and responsible for analyzing the potential environmental impacts of the proposed action and creating airspace closures to ensure public safety. The FAA requested cooperating agencies to participate in the NEPA process due to their special expertise or jurisdiction by law over the launch facility or maritime environment. Cooperating agencies for this draft EIS include NASA, the Department of the Air Force, U.S. Coast Guard, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge, and National Park Service Canaveral National Seashore. The perception and evaluation of sound involves three basic physical characteristics: duration, magnitude, and frequency. The study area for noise includes the area with the potential to be affected by noise from the proposed action. A person's response to noise depends on factors such as the setting, time of day, type of activity being conducted when the noise occurs, weather conditions, and the sensitivity of the individual. Noise affects several resource areas, and it is discussed in several sections of the EIS. The analysis focuses on areas within which noise and sonic booms would be most likely to be disturbing or impactful. Potential noise effects could occur from the proposed construction or proposed static fire tests, launches, and landings at LC-39A. This slide presents some noise effects that would occur under the proposed action, including land use incompatibility, high percentages of sleep disturbance predicted from sonic booms, and hearing loss risk. The following slides will go into additional detail about these effects. This slide also presents an overview of the methodology used to analyze noise effects. Noise effects were assessed against the no-action alternative, which represents current activities and operations at and around LC-39A without the proposed action. Rocket noise is already a notable occasional part of the acoustic environment in the study area. Some operations are expected to occur late at night, between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., and would have an increased likelihood of disturbing sleep. Launch propulsion noise levels would be associated with up to 14% of people being awakened if windows are open, and 10% if windows are closed. Propulsion noise from landing events and static fire tests would produce lower noise levels, resulting in a smaller percentage of people being awakened. Sonic booms generated during Super Heavy booster landings would generate noise levels associated with up to 82% of people being awakened if sleeping outdoors or in structures with minimal noise attenuation, such as mobile homes. For Starship landings in the same scenario, up to 55% of those exposed could be awakened. Typical structures provide up to 15 decibels in noise attenuation, with a reduction in the percentage of persons exposed being awakened. For booster landings, up to 42% of persons sleeping in typical structures exposed to the noise may be awakened, while for Starship landings, up to 22% exposed may be awakened. There would be a low probability of structural damage on or outside the boundaries of KSC and Cape Canaveral Space Force Station due to noise and vibrations generated by the proposed action. During launches, Super Heavy booster landings, and Super Heavy booster static fire tests, communities outside the boundaries of KSC and Cape Canaveral Space Force Station would experience noise levels between 111 and 120 decibels maximum sound level, or LMAX. Sustained unweighted noise levels more than 111 decibels are associated with a 1 in 1,000 probability of damage claims. Noise levels slightly exceeding 120 decibels LMAX, which are associated with 1 in 100 probability of damage claims, would affect a small number of residences on Merritt Island only during launches. Noise levels of more than 130 decibels LMAX are associated with a substantial risk of structural damage, but noise levels would not exceed 130 decibels LMAX at any locations outside the boundaries of KSC and Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Sonic booms would be expected to exceed 2 pounds per square foot, or PSF, a magnitude associated with a 1 in 10,000 probability of breakage for a large window. This could include portions of Titusville, Port St. John, Merritt Island, Cape Canaveral, and others. If any damage were to occur as a result of sonic booms, it would be expected to be limited to lightweight or brittle structural elements. The FAA requires SpaceX to maintain insurance in the event of claims of structural damage. In the unlikely event that damage to a structure were to occur because of Starship-Super Heavy operations, property owners would contact SpaceX directly to submit claims. Sonic booms generated during Starship and Super Heavy booster landings would exceed 4 PSF in some privately owned portions of Merritt Island and the city of Cape Canaveral. However, sonic boom sound energy is primarily at low frequencies, which do not interact strongly with the human hearing mechanism. Due to infrequent exposure and the likelihood that persons will be indoors during sonic booms, the risk of hearing loss as a result of the proposed action would be minimal. The majority of super heavy landings in the Atlantic Ocean would not be audible on shore. Only contingency landings, estimated to be less than 5 per year, could exceed 1 PSF. This would result in sound events between 90 to 115 decibels, but would be brief, infrequent, and would not exceed Occupational Safety and Health Administration or OSHA hearing conservation thresholds. The Super Heavy booster contingency landing area is a minimum of 5 miles offshore. Booster contingency landing noise levels are generally less than nominal landing levels on land. The Starship contingency landing area is a minimum of 1 mile offshore and extends more than 1,000 miles into the ocean. Landings far from shore would not be audible onshore. The map on this slide shows the small land areas that could hypothetically be affected by a Starship contingency landing sonic boom. Areas within the blue dashed line could hypothetically experience a sonic boom between 1 and 1.7 PSF. However, these would be extremely rare. During operations, which include static fire tests, launches, and landings, noise levels would remain below 65 dBA DNL at all locations outside the boundaries of KSC and Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. The map on the right shows cumulative C-weighted day-night noise levels, or CDNL. The CDNL metric is a version of the DNL metric that is specific to sonic booms. Sonic boom time averaged noise levels would increase such that additional land area in Titusville, Merritt Island, Cape Canaveral, and Cocoa Beach would be exposed to greater than 60 decibels CDNL. Portions of Cape Canaveral and Merritt Island would be exposed to levels between 65 and 70 decibels CDNL. Residential land uses and schools are considered incompatible at these levels, and sensitive public uses such as hospitals and places of worship are considered compatible only if sound attenuation provided by the structure exceeds minimum values. Certain other land uses, such as offices and commercial, are compatible at greater than 65 decibels CDNL only if attenuation minimums are met. Based on FAA criteria, increased supersonic noise level from the proposed action would result in significant noise effects. Interruptions of activities in nearby communities by noise would be relatively brief, and proposed mitigations, such as public notifications, could assist in reducing the public's perception of the effects. The study area for impacts to land use includes LC-39A at KSC and the surrounding land uses and management with potential to be affected by the proposed project. Some land outside the boundaries of KSC and Cape Canaveral Space Force Station would be exposed to sonic boom noise levels exceeding 60 decibels CDNL, which is considered incompatible with sensitive land uses, such as residential areas and schools. This is considered a significant effect. Land uses would not be affected to the extent that public health or safety was threatened. Additionally, it is not anticipated that fire management program activities would significantly change in the area surrounding KSC due to existing agreements with NASA, Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Effects to recreational land use in the surrounding study area would occur due to increased noise events and public exposure, as well as increased access restrictions, closures, and the associated changes to U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and National Park Service staff management priorities altered by launches. Playa Linda Beach could experience up to 60.5 closure days per year. Before any closures are enacted, the closure activities must be reviewed and approved by the National Park Service Director and the Assistant Secretary for Fish and Wildlife and Parks under Secretarial Order 3426. This will be coordinated between the FAA, SpaceX, and the Department of the Interior. However, the FAA has not determined these effects to be significant, as the noise and closure events would be temporary and would not permanently preclude the viability or use of the areas, as shown by their current exposure to frequent launch-related noise from both KSC and Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. The study area was developed using a maximum A-weighted noise level to evaluate the short duration, high-intensity nature of launch and landing noise from LC-39A. The FAA has determined that it is not required to prepare a Section 4F evaluation for this project for the Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge, or MNWAR, managed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, or for the Canaveral National Seashore, or CANA, managed by the National Park Service, because both MNWAR and CANA meet the requirements of the Joint Development Exception provision of 23 CFR Section 774.11I. The Section 4F study area therefore focuses on areas outside MNWAR and CANA. For vibration impacts on historic properties, the study area is the extent of the 2 PSF overpressure contour. For noise impacts on public parks and recreational areas, the study area is the extent of the 60 decibel CDNL contour. The noise impacts on wildlife and waterfowl refuges is the extent of the 1 pounds PSF overpressure contour and the 60 decibel CDNL contour. Under the proposed action, construction activities would not involve use of any Section 4F property. Construction activities would not result in substantive changes to the viewshed. Proximal properties are already exposed to launch landing noise and access limitations on a regular basis. Operation of the proposed action would not result in constructive use of any Section 4F property. The study area for biological resources covers the areas potentially affected by construction and operation under the proposed action. This includes the terrestrial, estuarine, and nearshore areas at and around LC-39A, as well as the offshore portions of the Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, and Indian Ocean, where super heavy boosters and starships could be expended or land on a drone ship. Under the proposed action, the following stressors have the potential to affect biological resources: vegetation disturbance or destruction, noise and visual stimuli, vibrations, sonic booms, strikes or collisions, deluge water and plumes, artificial lighting, hazardous materials, invasive species introduction, and restricted access for management and monitoring. Under the proposed action, effects to historical, architectural, archaeological, and cultural resources are possible. Significant impacts to these resources are unlikely because of the infrequency of damage to these kinds of resources when exposed to sonic boom overpressure events, and vibratory effects expected within the APE as a result of the proposed action. However, poorly maintained structures or previously damaged structures may be more susceptible to damage. The long-term effects of repeated sonic boom overpressure events on subsurface archaeological sites, if any, are poorly understood. NASA, as the lead agency for National Historic Preservation Act consultation and in coordination with FAA, intends to continue Section 106 consultation with the State Historic Preservation Office, federally recognized tribes, and other consulting parties to develop and execute a programmatic agreement, or PA, pursuant to 36 CFR Section 800.14b. The PA will include ongoing consultation and monitoring efforts and mitigation strategies to resolve any potential adverse effects resulting from the proposed action. The study area for transportation is LC-39A and the areas in and around KSC that could be affected by launches, test operations, and transportation. Under the proposed action, launches, landings, and static fire tests would require surveillance and clearing of certain maritime areas. There would be no changes to sizes of RNAs as a result of Starship-Super heavy launches and reentries. The map on the left of the slide shows fairways and 2023 vessel transit counts. The map on the right of the slide shows vessel transit counts entering and exiting Port Canaveral. Transit exiting and entering Port Canaveral is considered high. This slide shows the notional potential aircraft hazard areas, or AHAs, associated with launches and booster landings, as well as Starship re-entries and return to launch site. These AHAs define the temporarily closed airspace that would be established and published through a notice to airmen prior to the launch re-entry. The location and size of airspace closures for commercial space operations also vary with each mission type and are influenced by multiple factors, including prior flight history. The size of airspace closures can grow or shrink as reliability is either decreased or increased, with results and analysis from each launch. The study area for potential airspace impacts includes airways over the Atlantic Ocean, Caribbean Sea, and the airspace of the Bahamas, as well as airways over portions of the Pacific Ocean, Gulf of America, and the airspace of several Central American countries. Under the proposed action, launch and Super Heavy booster returns may require temporary closure of airways over the Atlantic Ocean and affect the airspace of the Bahamas. Starship re-entry may require temporary closure of airways over portions of the Pacific Ocean, Gulf of America, Caribbean Sea, and Atlantic Ocean, and affect the airspace of several Central American countries. There may be significant aircraft rerouting to avoid AHAs. Multiple airports may require ground stops due to overlying AHAs. Diversions and cancellations may also occur. The average expected flight delay for launches and booster landings is approximately 40 minutes to 2 hours. For Starship re-entries, approximately 40 minutes to 1 hour. The delay could be incrementally greater based on any delay of the start of the re-entry within the assumed 1-hour re-entry window. Affected airports in Florida could include Fort Lauderdale-Hollywood International Airport, Orlando International Airport, Tampa International Airport, and Miami International Airport. All launch and re-entry operations would comply with necessary notification requirements, including issuance of notices to airmen and identification of AHAs that assist pilots in scheduling around temporary disruption of flight activities. This slide displays the remaining major milestones of the EIS schedule. The draft EIS was published on August 8, 2025. Public meetings are being held in person on August 26th and August 28th, and virtually on September 3rd. The public comment period will close on September 22nd, 2025, after which the FAA will evaluate and incorporate comments into the final EIS. The FAA will then issue a Record of Decision, ROD. As previously discussed, there are multiple ways to submit comments. Comments may be provided verbally during this meeting to a court reporter, online at regulations.gov under docket ID FAA-2024-1395, or by mail to Ms. Eva Long, FAA Environmental Protection Specialist, care of Leidos, 2877 Guardian Lane, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23452, or submitted on a written comment form during a public meeting. The FAA will consider and respond in the final EIS to all substantive comments received or postmarked by no later than September 22, 2025. You may also subscribe to the project mailing list and view the draft EIS at the project website listed at the bottom of this slide. The FAA is seeking comments from the public concerning the accuracy of the draft EIS, adequacy of the analysis, new information, alternatives not considered that meet the project's purpose and need, or additional areas where further clarification is needed. All substantive comments received, regardless of format or submission date, will be given full and equal consideration. This concludes the video presentation.
Thank you. I think we're ready to get started with the public comment session of tonight's meeting. I'll call on the people who requested to make a comment when they registered first. All names will be called in the order in which we received your registration. I'd like to remind everybody that all comments, whether received orally, written, or electronically, are weighted equally. Due to the high volume of registrants indicating they would like to provide a public comment this evening, and the time allowed, we will be enforcing a strict 3-minute time limit per comment. We will not be taking repeat speakers this evening. When your name is called, you'll use the raise your hand feature located at the bottom of the Zoom platform, or if you're calling in from a phone, you'll type *9. I'll call on people to comment in the order in which you raise your hand. During the verbal comment session, I'll post the names of the next few speakers in the chat so you can see when your turn is coming up. I'll then read the names aloud and ask that you please raise your hand using the button at the bottom of your screen, or again, typing *9 if you called in by phone. That will let me know that you're on the call and you're still interested in providing a public comment. If you're on the call but no longer wish to provide a public comment, feel free to just not raise your hand and we'll move on to the next speaker. I'll call the names of the people who have their hands raised, and when I call your name, you'll receive a pop-up box on your screen that will allow you to unmute yourself to make your comment. Sometimes that pop-up box gets hidden if you have several other windows open on your computer, so I recommend closing any extra windows or apps at this time. If you're calling in from a phone, you'll hear a prompt to press *6 to unmute your line. All right, a couple of ground rules for us to follow during the verbal comment session this evening. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. I'll post a timer on the screen to help keep track of the time. At the end of your time, I'll jump in to ask you to quickly wrap up to allow others the opportunity to comment. If you're not able to complete your comments within the allotted time, you may still submit your comments in writing before the end of the comment period, which again ends on September 22nd of 2025. Before moving into the verbal comment session this evening, I'd like to reiterate some information previously mentioned. The FAA is seeking feedback from federal, state, and local agencies, tribes, and most importantly, the public to develop the final EIS. The purpose of this meeting is to provide the opportunity to learn about and comment on the project. Public comments will be part of the official record, and a summary will be included in the final EIS document. The FAA is also seeking to identify issues of interest or concern to frame the environmental analyses and more effectively shape the range of alternatives the FAA will consider. As previously discussed, comments may be submitted in multiple ways: verbally to a court reporter tonight, online at regulations.gov under docket ID FAA 2024 1395, or by mail. The FAA will consider in the final EIS all comments received or postmarked by no later than September 22nd, 2025. Before including your address, phone number, email address, or other personal identifying information in your comment, please be advised that your entire comment, including your personal identifying information, may be made publicly available at any time. While you can ask the FAA in your comment to withhold from public review your personal identifying information, the FAA cannot guarantee that it will be able to do so. All right, we're going to go ahead and start hearing from those who pre-registered, indicating they want to provide a verbal comment tonight. The names of the first few commenters have been posted in the chat box. I'll now read those names aloud and ask that you please raise your hand using the button at the bottom of your screen, or again, if you've called in by phone, pressing *9 to raise your hand. I'll call the names of the people who have their hands raised. You'll receive that pop-up box that you can unmute, state and spell your name and any affiliation for the record, and make your comment. Finally, I apologize in advance for any mispronunciation of names this evening. Okay, our first 5 speakers are Evan Fine, Randy Moore, Tamsin Bell, Brad Parrish, and Ekateria Blasanaru. Okay, Evan, I see your hand is raised. You're going to get a prompt to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Great, thank you. My name is Evan Fine. That's Evanfine. I'm a 21-year-old prospective law student passionate about space, space law, and the future legal considerations of commercial space proliferation. The folks at RGV might know me as Avamancer, so hi guys. I'd like to share 2 points of practical support for this draft EIS about Starship and Launch Complex 39A, and then I'd like to share a few additional points of support. First off, the previous EIS already has, from what I understand, no significant effects to visual effects, water resources, hazardous materials, solid waste, health and safety, among other factors. That's from finding EIS decimal 8. I say this just to say that existing environmental effects have been in consideration, and I'm grateful that those findings are documented in great detail in the executive summary. As I'm aware that this updated EIS deals primarily with the increase in launch cadence, that leads me to my next point. This increase in launch cadence represents a logical step towards not only a more technologically advanced civilization, one that's comfortable reaching into space weekly, not monthly, but also towards the Artemis program's stated goal of returning Americans to the surface of the moon. Starship is NASA's designated crew lander for the Artemis 3 mission, and an increased launch cadence, in my eyes, will no doubt aid to hasten its iterative development. But perhaps the single greatest reason I'm speaking here today is because of the implications that the Starship program has that are perhaps not so easily seen. I believe SpaceX represents the highest echelon of American innovation in the present day, while previous industry titans lag behind. Their Falcon program has pioneered reusable rocketry, while their Starship program promises full and rapid reuse. Whether or not such a program can deliver has yet to be shown, but I strongly believe that small steps like this EIS can set the foundation for such American technologies to be pioneered. I believe that our national space program still finds its footing in the old colossus of the Apollo and Shuttle programs, and clinging to that past is simply not sustainable in an age of reusable rocketry. Accepting the no-action alternative to this EIS will only result in stagnation, and a stagnation of achievements and technology go hand in hand with a stagnation of culture, national will, and determination. I think I speak for many when I say, the efforts of the Starship program make me excited to be a part of the future, and I wholeheartedly support any well-tempered measure that brings it one step closer. So thank you all for your time and your consideration, and for allowing the public to be a part of this process. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you for your comments. All right, our next 4 speakers, I'm going to read their names one more time. In our first list, I'm not seeing on the Zoom platform, Randy Moore, Tamsin Bell, Brad Parrish, and Ekaterina Balasu or Sunu. All right, we've gone ahead and posted the names of our next 5 speakers into the chat. Allison Parks, Lee Thompson, Seth Burtis, Bob Zales, and Jerry Villanueva Havizi. Again, if you're on the Zoom platform, use that raise hand located at the bottom of your platform, or if you're on the phone line, press *9. Allison, I see that you're on the line. I'm going to give you a prompt to unmute. Allison Parks, if you're still wishing to make a verbal comment this evening, you have been given a prompt to unmute your line. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on. Lee Thompson, I'm going to give you a prompt to unmute.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Yes. I wanted to actually raise some points that I thought maybe were not fully analyzed. With respect to the assumptions having to do with daytime, nighttime launches, and that being presumed to be like half and half, the majority of launches tend to be at night. And also, as we all know, they tend to get pushed with some frequency. So that isn't really accurate. Another aspect is that whenever you do the impact of noise, vibration, etc., it does it per launch. Now we've got the approval that's come through for 120 Falcon launches, and we're looking at 88. We're looking at well over 200 launches. So there needs to be a multiplication factor in here of given the number of launches. It isn't just happening once. It's happening over and over and over and over and over again. And for those who have spoken at other meetings and said they're beginning to see some cracks in their houses, they would probably differ with that. There's also a place where it states that noise per launch lasts about 2 minutes. That is not correct. With respect to the stated purpose of Starship, the one that is completely left out has to do with a desire, expectation that this would be utilized in creating a colony on Mars. That isn't mentioned. Also, just for whoever recorded this, the beach is called Playa Linda, not Ply. Also, I'm a little bit surprised, frankly, that there's already been work that's begun on the pad, and there's already begun work to do with the Gigabay. And I'm not sure under whose authorization those things were done. So those are my comments for now, but it does seem as if a lot of this interaction with the different stakeholders, including communities and private citizens, that since the 120 launches of the Falcon have been approved with flying colors, it feels as if that's exactly what's going to happen with this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, I'm not seeing Seth Burtis on the line. So our next speaker that I see on the Zoom platform is Bob Zales. I'm going to give you a prompt to speak.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Bob Zales. I'm the Executive Director of Southeastern Fisheries Association. We've been monitoring this issue now for several months, and we've provided a multitude of comments, both in person and online about this issue. We're also working with legislators, in particular Senator Rick Scott's folks. I met with their staff yesterday on this. When you talk in this thing about the financial obligations or responsibilities of SpaceX, what we have looked at, clearly these issues are this issue is gonna happen. They're gonna launch rockets from this place. And so our major concern is because of the economic impacts that is happening to commercial fishing, to the processors in the area, to shrimpers and fishers, because of the launch times they're restricted from getting to their fishing grounds. Also because of the debris that falls off the rockets into the water, the shrimp nets pick up a lot of debris, tears up the nets, so they lose income from having to repair nets, they lose time from shrimping. So there's a big economic loss here. So we've talked about, and clearly what we would contend would be the financial responsibility of SpaceX would be to establish a damage fund to compensate the fishing industry in that area for the loss of fishing time, for the damages that they sustain, and do that. Barring that, the next step would be, and according to the FAA, and I've been in touch with people with FAA, they won't be establishing a fund, so it may take congressional authorization and to do an appropriations for this. So we've talked to Senator Scott's people about this, about establishing a fund. Clearly, a fund needs to be established because damage is there. Losses of income is there. And so we need to see that. Now, we're also concerned about the recent EO that President Trump did a week or two ago about the environmental impacts of this. It's Executive Order 14335. Essentially, with all the wording, it basically says SpaceX is going to happen. Environmental impacts really don't matter. So, but they do matter. And there needs to be mitigation impacts taken to address the environmental impacts that are there. We support the space industry. We want to see it exist, but at the same time, we want our members over there to be compensated for the losses that they experience in the fishing losses and also to the damage to their equipment. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. All right, I'm not seeing, again, Allison Parks. If you're still wishing to make a comment, just raise your hand. I'm not seeing Seth Burtis or Jerry on the line from our second list. So we've gone ahead and posted the names of our next 4 speakers, which are Jack Kennedy Jr., Luciano Parodi, Robert Chu, and Hyung Jung Cho. Okay, we see a comment from one of those individuals stating they're going to submit their comments in writing or through regulations.gov. And I'm not seeing the other speakers on the Zoom platform. Again, Jack Kennedy Jr., Luciano Pavarotti, Robert Chu. If you're on the Zoom platform, please send us a chat message because we're not able to identify you by the name maybe that you joined. Or if you're a call-in user, press *9 to raise your hand. All right, we've posted the names of the next 5 speakers in the chat. Benjamin Robbins, Sarah Bramall, Joseph Reeves, Stephanie Jangelis, and Kelly San Antonio. Okay, Stephen, I see your hand is raised. I'm going to give you a prompt to unmute.
Hi, do you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you. I am Stephen Jangelis, StephenJangelis. I am the Aviation Safety Chair for the Airline Pilots Association International, and I'm also a Merritt Island resident. So I take this, this is more of a personal comment more than the business comment, but I'd like to point out that one of the things that I see in this environmental hazard assessment are the hazard areas being drawn a little too restrictive for the airline community. I think the estimates are very narrow, and I would like to see the FAA and SpaceX provide us with actual, when they had some mishaps, actual debris data mapping. And if those hazard areas were drawn properly, because I feel that there's a little bit of a storytelling along with these hazard areas as they're drawn. I also think that there needs to be a consideration taken into the idea that SpaceX is a for-profit business, and other for-profit businesses, including the previous speaker, as well as others, are going to be damaged and harmed by this continued operation. Obviously, this isn't just going to be for the national interest. There will be profits made from launching other vehicles like satellites and things for other agencies where SpaceX will benefit from. As another previous commenter stated, we're not only just talking about the Super Heavy launches, we're also talking about the other Falcon 9 launches, and you're talking about a number of nighttime launches that are going to occur. Obviously, those were taken off of nominal flying patterns at the airports to after hours. So I would assume a lot of this would be the same. So I think the estimate of 22 day and 22 night are it's not an accurate estimate. I believe that most of these will be at night. So when you add that into the numbers of the Falcon launches, we're going to talk about almost 3/4 of a year where residents of Merritt Island, Cape Canaveral, Titusville, et cetera, will be harmed and awakened by this continual launch schedule. I understand that there are the damage estimates that are out there, but I don't think that we've got an accurate model that we could work with. You have sound decibels, but we don't have anything on exactly what's going on where they are launching it as test vehicles in Texas. So with that, I'll complete my comments and thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, our next speaker, Joseph, I see your hand is raised. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Joseph Rivas, Joseph I'm the president of the American Association of Nude Recreation for the Florida region. The region includes the great state of Florida, as well as the Caribbean nations and Eastern Mexico. We thank you for retaining Playa Linda Beach as is. It's one of Florida's 4 clothing optional beaches, so we thank you for that. Our industry contributes $6 billion annually to the state of Florida economic impact. I bring that to your attention because with Florida and the Caribbean, travel and tourism is a major factor of our economies. And although 40 minutes to 2 hours on a flight delay might seem insignificant to a data analyst, it just needs to be widely communicated so people will continue to visit our state and our Caribbean nations. And the same goes for when the area has to be closed, a wide communication stream, so you're not inconveniencing people or deterring them from future travels to our great region. I thank you for the opportunity for comment and wish you well in the process. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, we received a note from a couple of the speakers in this panel letting us know that they no longer wish to make comments this evening. All right, Kelly San Antonio, I see you're on the line. If you're still wishing to comment, just raise your hand. All right, I see you. And I give you a prompt to unmute.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. So my name is Kelly San Antonio, Kelly, second word SAN, third word ANTONIO. I am an environmental scientist at Bethune-Cookman University in Daytona Beach. And I would like to share with everyone that as part of a collaborative research between Bethune-Cookman, Embry-Riddle, and several other universities, we examined the vegetation change around the intended launch complex from 2013 to 2023. And we found that while there were some damages from the vegetation around the launch pad, surprisingly, the impact of the rocket launches using the liquid propellant on the nearby vegetation, while detectable, was on a smaller scale than the solid rocket engine vehicles. So our research from last year is hopeful and would like to further explore and see that these super heavy rockets and where they go. So I would just like to add the 2 cents for that. And I thank the panel for having this meeting. And that is all for my comments.
Thank you for your comments. All right, our additional speakers in this list are requesting to not make a comment this evening. They're going to provide them in writing. So we'll go ahead and move on to our next list, where the speakers are David Cox, Jill Carey, Brad Whitmore, Angelina Reddy, and Cheryl Rogers. Angelina, I see your hand is raised. I'm going to give you a prompt to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Angelina Reddy. Today I'm representing the Center for Space Environmentalism, a coalition of astrophysicists, environmental scientists, and authors who evaluate space activity along the entire continuum spanning Earth, LEO, and deep space exploration. We're grateful to the hard work that went into preparing this EIS and the public comment period here today, so thank you very much for this transparency and dedication to providing data that allows the public to weigh in on impacts to their local environment and the globe at large. We would like to express concern with a noticed trend in incremental, seemingly benign adjustments that result in EISs with a largely different scope from the initial review. For example, more than doubling the launch cadence, as is the case here. We would like to particularly highlight that Starship failed 9 out of 10 of its test launches, and a simple doubling of this data means that 18 failures for 2 successes is a finding of no significant impact or a FONSI. We understand the NEPA evaluation process to encourage reusing similar assessments to save time and processing power, and we would appreciate a more direct reference to previous EISs that were used in the research for this one, when they were originally published, and how many launches were within the scope of those previous analyses. We suspect that what may have constituted a FONSI in the past that has now more than doubled its scope would not result in a FONSI if the evaluation was done all over again. Thank you very much for your hard work again on this subject, and we're very grateful to your work. We would like to highlight that EO 14335 would be very damaging in losing this opportunity for public content on future space activities that affect local communities and global impact alike.
Thank you for your comments. All right, we're still looking for David Cox. Brad Whitmore, I do see you on the line. Just raise your hand if you're still wishing to make a comment this evening. And Cheryl Rogers. All right, Brad, I see your hand is raised. I'm going to give you a prompt to unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yes, I live on the mainland, just south of State Road 520, where the causeway comes into Cocoa Village. We're about 20 miles, give or take, from launch complexes out at the Cape and Space Center. I can tell you that Falcon 9 launches sometimes are barely noticeable. At other times, they are very evident in our 100-plus-year-old historic home. Not uncommon at all for the windows in my house to shake for 2 minutes as I time it, and I've seen as much as 4. We've had some minor damage, plaster off of the ceiling, that kind of thing, doors that maybe don't hang like they used to hang. I had a structural examination done, and to my great relief, it passed as everything was looking good of our footings on a sand basis. So that was very encouraging news. With this great increase in launches of Falcon 9 and bringing in a rocket with approximately 4 times as many engines, I can interpolate that this is going to get a whole lot more interesting. The noise and vibration in our area is currently very significant. I got the impression from the other studies that it was underestimated as to what the effect actually is, and I'm hoping the FAA looks at it in a little different light and a little bit more seriously, and doesn't underestimate the impact of what these launches are doing to our area, even though we're not on Merritt Island or out at the Cape. We have many historic residences and many historic buildings in our area. And I think that there will probably end up being some damages, and it's great that they have insurance for broken windows. But like the gentleman from the fishery said, there needs to be a fund where when there is damage noted that there's reasonably accessible means to recoup what the damages are. And that much interruption into life is just the lifestyle. If you want to live there, that's what you're going to get. But it is going to be an interruption into lifestyle. Make no bones about it. As for any mitigation ideas, I have noticed that some launches you barely know they're there, and some they shake your teeth. Possibly less than optimal launch time or trajectory or windows for atmospheric conditions are considered. And even if it's not optimal for the launch cost, fuel burn, whatever, maybe if it was factored into the good for the community, that would be a factor that could be a means to mitigate some of the problem that I think we're going to be having. Anyway, I am very pro space. I always have been. And I wish them luck with all that they're doing. Love to see it going. I just don't want it to have the impact into our community where I am being as bad as it seems like it could be. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. All right, I'm not seeing anyone else from that list. Cheryl Rogers, Jill Carey, or David Cox on the platform. If you're a call-in user, you can press star to raise your hand. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next list. Sam Moomey, William Burns, Julie Seabury, and Nick Nita. If you're on the Zoom platform and still wishing to make a comment, again, we've received chat messages from a few people that were pre-registered to speak, indicating that they do not want to provide a comment this evening, that they will provide their comments in writing or electronically. William Burns, I do see you on the platform, so just raise your hand if you'd still like to make your verbal comment this evening. Again, our current list is Sam Moomey, William Burns, Julie Seabury, and Nick Nita. If you're on the platform and would still like to make a comment, just raise your hand. If you've called in by phone, press star 9 to raise your hand. Okay, William, I see your hand is raised. I'm going to give you a prompt to unmute. William, you're unmuted on our end.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I sure can. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I understand that as part of this review process, approximately 50 flights per year. I forget the exact number, but there was a number that was mentioned. Is that an exact number? Is that a maximum number? Or is that just a number for this review process, and 5 years down the road after the launches start, they can double, triple, quadruple? How does that work? Hello?
Sure, let's just pause the timer. William, we're not doing a Q&A this evening, but we are accepting your verbal comments. So you have 2.5 minutes left to put any comments that you'd like on the record, and that can include questions or things that you'd like to be on the record for inclusion in the draft document.
Okay. Well, then I'll phrase it this way. Whatever the number of launches was for the Starship that was mentioned in the public hearings, then I will assume that that is the maximum number. That won't change, because surely if there were additional flights in the future, if it would double, quadruple, whatever, as I mentioned, then surely we would be notified as such. The other thing is, there's been a couple articles recently quoting Elon Musk, where Musk was said that there would be 6 to 10 launches per day in like 5 or 6 years. That's what he's hoping for. So when you say per day, then I'm assuming that if he's mentioning that number of launches, then he's talking about launching virtually every day of the year. The only existing launch pad that I'm aware of is in Texas and here in Cape Canaveral. So there'll only be 2. So from that comment alone, it seems like there's going to be nonstop launching from Cape Canaveral at Titusville. In which case, this would be like Grand Central Station. And I think I heard one comment I just hopped on about the number, the accidents and blowups thus far, evidently under the maximum number allowed or something, so it can move through the process. But that would be a tremendous type of potential damage to the community. The noise, the space program has always been nice on the occasional launch, but with that type of launch schedule, it would be a disaster. And the whole beach and everything would be closed. The turtles would be gone. So I presume from all this that the focus is on the money, the economics, and not on anything else.
And that's time. Thank you for your comments. All right, I'm not seeing anyone else in that list currently on the platform. Sam Mumi, Julie Seabury, or Nick Nita. So we'll go ahead and post the names of what is our current last list of speakers from those that have pre-registered. Susan Douglas, Christina Fisher, John Tiliakos, and Eric Shuktoff. And Christina, I see your hand is raised. I'm gonna ask you to unmute.
Mute. Okay, I'm Christina Fisher. I want to start by saying I love space. I have no objection to SpaceX. They've achieved amazing things, but I object to the Starship coming to the Cape. The Starship currently has, I believe by their own admission, a 50% success rate. I don't want 50% of the rockets blowing up because that does untold environmental damage. The launch area is surrounded by important migratory bird and breeding bird habitats. The toxins and the debris from the explosions damage and poison those habitats. And even when the debris is removed, it takes, 20 years or more for the marshes to regenerate. It's going to create unbelievable large number of days of beach closures for Playa Linda, Canaveral National Seashore, because we all know every rocket launch gets slipped 20 times. Beach closures, I know at Boca Chica is something that's a big hot topic because they went way more number of days than they originally claimed. 44 launches a year from 39A will require beach closures repeatedly, possibly for multiple days if they have to slip to the next day and then the next day. I'm also very concerned about the proximity of 39A to 39B. B is the only man-rated launch pad they have right now. It's the only one that's currently launching astronauts to the ISS, the International Space Station. If an explosion happens on 39A or immediately after takeoff, it could easily seriously damage 39B, and then we would have no way of getting astronauts on or off the ISS. That's it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. All right, our next speaker, John, I see your hand is raised. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me, Jennifer?
Yes, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Hey, good evening, and thanks for the opportunity to comment. My name is John Tiliakis. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Tampa International Airport. We have no issue with the space program, big supporters of space. However, we are one of 4 large hub airports that the Starship-Super Heavy program launches is no doubt going to impact. And the bigger concern for us and I'm sure other The other large hub airports is the cadence of launches. Obviously, that cadence is going to increase over time. And with each launch comes impacts to commercial and general aviation air traffic. Through ground delay programs, as you outlined earlier, flow control programs. So there is the potential that there's going to be significant impact to commercial aviation and the traveling public. And that's something that certainly the FAA needs to give consideration to, and frankly, come up with a plan to mitigate that. It's not just the Starship-Super Heavy. I just earlier today learned of an additional EA on the Falcon 9 rocket launches, increasing by an additional 70 on top of the 50 daily launches. So that's going to go up to 120 launches a day. So you combine that with what's going on with Starship Super Heavy, and certainly I envision there's going to be significant impact throughout the operating day and evening on commercial air traffic. And again, that's something that we believe the FAA needs to address with regard to mitigating impacts to the commercial air transportation. Thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments. All right, Eric, I see your hand is raised. Let me give you a prompt to unmute.
Okay.
Hang on one second. Let's just go back to the timer.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening and thank you. My name is Eric Shutoff. That's SCHUTTAUF. And I serve as the Executive Director for the American Association for Nude Recreation, which is based right in nearby Kissimmee, Florida. We have, over the course of our existence, over 250,000 that we have served who enjoy clothes-free recreation in the United States, Canada, and beyond. And as has been stated, the impact of this industry on Florida's economy runs between 6 and 8, and we're here speaking on behalf to enjoy their birthday suit and are brought here for that. The concern that we have with what has been presented, and we have reviewed the numerous maps showing anticipated effective areas, and they all cover the section of Brevard County that's going to be infected. There has not been much talk about Volusia County, however, and while that's not part of the immediate launch area, it is going to be impacted, and here's why. Because as many people face closures of their favorite beach south around Plylinda Beach and elsewhere, they are going to move and migrate upwards into Volusia County, where Apollo Beach is located, and there is certain to be user conflict generated when people who do not understand the customs of Plylinda Beach are intermixed with people that have been driven north. And that's just one example that has not been covered previously. Our association's mission and everything that we do, our history since 1931, is on www.aanr.com so that more understanding of where our concern is could be found. And we thank you for the time to speak with you this evening, and all those who have attended. That's it.
Thank you for your comments. All right. I'm not seeing Susan Douglas. On the Zoom platform. And that takes us to the end of our list of pre-registered speakers this evening. If you did not pre-register and have not already spoken this evening, but would like to make a comment, I ask that you please use the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom platform, or if you've called in by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. We have some time remaining, so we're happy to hear additional comments from those who have not already spoken. I'll call your name in the order in which you raise your hand, and you'll receive again that pop-up box asking you to unmute. If you've dialed in by phone, you'll use *6 to unmute and then remute. Okay, I see a couple hands raised. Max, go ahead. I'm going to give you a prompt to unmute.
Hello, my name is Max West. That's Max West, MaxWest. I'm the admin of the Max West YouTube channel. I'm pro SpaceX, and I love everything that they're doing in Florida. I actually plan to move down to Florida in the coming years and photograph these rocket launches. And I can't wait. It's a job for me, and it's bringing a lot more jobs down to the Florida area. And I say that more launches would be nice. I know in the future, like in the next 10 to 15 years, SpaceX plans to launch like 6 or 7 times a day, which is just incredible. It's going to be great. Sorry, excuse me. So yeah, it's bringing a lot of jobs, and I mean, I'm not gonna say that I'm not gonna say that there is zero environmental impact. There will be some minor little sacrifices that we have to make. The turtles and the nudists will have to migrate, maybe, and that's just that's the cost that you have to pay for this incredible stuff that's happening, making life multiplanetary, going to Mars, saving humanity from a possible extinction. It's just very important. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right. Is it Gianna Merrifield? I see your hand is raised. Let me give you a prompt to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. This is Mike Merrifield, speaking on Gina's computer. Owner? I am I have a business in Cape Canaveral, in Port Canaveral. I'm with Wild Ocean Seafood, Cape Canaveral Shrimp Company. And I am not anti-space or against launches. However, as in my business, with the natural resource out there, we have to be completely accountable for it. I think that we just need to make sure there's accountability for any impacts that might be made. So I am in support of a contingency fund that would support unintended and unpredicted consequences that might occur, and they always do, under estimations and impacts to the environment, to existing businesses, to existing residences and infrastructure. We are experiencing impacts from the increased launches that have occurred to this point that were not considered in previous environmental impacts assessments. So we're still catching debris from the bottom of the ocean. We're still being impacted by closed navigational areas and how to coordinate those areas and make sure that people are not where they are not supposed to be during launch periods. And like I said, we're still catching debris from the bottom of the ocean from previous programs, and we still don't have a resolution on how to get that debris picked up and collected and removed from the bottom of the ocean. It just kind of gets thrown back down to the bottom of the ocean, and it rolls around, kicks around, and gets recaught and keeps getting regurgitated through the system. So again, I'm not against space, but I do think that there definitely needs to be some type of fund that we can address these unintended and unpredicted consequences that are undoubtedly going to occur. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, Kathleen Rich, I see your hand is raised. I'm going to give you a prompt to unmute.
Hello, this is Kathleen Rich, Kathleen, last name Ritch. And I believe one can be an advocate of science and space exploration while opposing the location of a Starship launch pad in a highly populated area. There are many locations across the U.S. that have little to no residential population, offering a safer and less intrusive experience. Why not a more desolate region with fewer residents? We live in Cocoa Beach, and our quality of life is definitely impacted and will be impacted even greater with the introduction of Starship. Residents do not wish to be wakened during their sleep. It causes health issues, especially for the elderly. People with heart conditions and hearing conditions could suffer further health deterioration. Currently, the noise is barely tolerable, particularly difficult at 3 o'clock in the morning, but the larger Starship rockets and boosters will be unbearable given they will be 5 times more powerful. We're concerned about damage to the foundation of our homes, our windows, the natural environment that we invested in. What will happen to the fish and the fowl in the area, with the dolphins being scared away and other wildlife suffering? How will that affect the tourism and fishing industries? There's no question we will be impacted. Our unrestricted use and enjoyment of our property will suffer. As was mentioned earlier, SpaceX is a for-profit company and will be earning billions of dollars from these launches. As such, how will local residents and homeowners be compensated for our inconvenience? Here are some ideas. SpaceX could pay a daily fee to property owners for every Starship launch. SpaceX could offer homeowner relief of all real estate taxes, given the compensation that we deserve. Cash offers by SpaceX could be made to purchase property at double the market value due to being forced to relocate. Financial responsibility of SpaceX to reimburse homeowners within a certain period of time, not months or years. Establishing a damage fund for other not only homeowners but commercial properties in the area. The environmental hazard in the region will include potential rocket debris that falls all over our beautiful beaches and potentially injures local residents or tourists. There are those of us that have spent decades building a nest egg, resulting in wonderful real estate investments in the area. Please take this into consideration and offer some sort of compensatory damages to our residents. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, again, we have a little bit of time remaining, and while we won't be presenting any new or different information, we will stay on the line until 8 p.m. Eastern to hear your verbal comments. If you haven't already spoken and would like to make a verbal comment this evening, just use the raised hand feature located at the bottom of the Zoom platform. Or if you've called in by phone, you can press *9. Rob in Memphis, I see your hand is raised. I'm going to give you a prompt to unmute.
Hi, everyone. I'm Robin Memphis. That's Robyn. My last name Memphis, Memphis. I started a change petition a couple weeks ago with regards to public access to Playa Linda Beach. I am just wondering if no one's denying any safety delays or safety closures on Playa Linda Beach. We have some of those now, and it's completely understandable, but I am wondering more about the logistical factors cited. I'm aware that MPS does control the closures, and I'm understand that if there's a morning launch, there might be a half day such as that. But I'm just wondering why if there's able to have more discussion in ways that various stakeholders can support NPS with regards to if that's issues with staffing and such to help protect access to play on the beach. I also want to highlight, I am a graduate student of neuroscience and psychology, and I do want to stress the impacts that go beyond physical access, and noise and sonic booms do create and will create real health risks. The FAA's in the draft states that launches may wake up 10 to 14% of residents. Sonic booms from landings could wake up as many as 80%. Chronic sleep disruption is not just inconvenient. This is directly linked to depression, anxiety. Someone else previously noted cardiovascular disease, even suicide risk. And being in Florida, we have many veterans and trauma survivors in the community. So I just want to kind of bring this also into discussion beyond just simply waking up. And finally, with Play on the Beach and Merritt Island Wildlife Refuge, we're also cutting off, again, one of the most important coping skills people have. There was a study put out actually last year from the organization I work for, and having access to outdoor space for exercise, relaxation, and mental health is actually one of the most common mitigating factors. And this research shows that time in nature even protects against stress, depression, and even suicidality. So to simultaneously increase nighttime noise and restrict these access to places truly is a double burden. And I'm hoping that there can be more input from community members. And again, as others previously noted, potential mitigating discussion. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, I'm not seeing any other hands raised. Again, we won't be presenting any new or different information, but if you would like to provide a verbal comment this evening and have not already spoken, you can use the raise hand feature located at the bottom of your Zoom platform, or if you called in by phone, you can press *9. I'll just pause for a moment to see if we have anyone else raise their hand. All right, Deborah Sue Stevens, I see your hand is raised. I'm going to give you a prompt to unmute.
Hello, Jennifer.
Go ahead, you have 3 minutes.
My name is Deborah Sue Stevens, Stevens, and I am a resident in California. I have been a nudist since I was a little girl. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about Playa Linda. And the people that I've known throughout my life, when they do travel, like myself, they go for destinations where nudity is legal, and like Robin was saying, it's relaxing. It's probably that 250,000 of people that travel and think like I do, look for destinations that are beautiful and surrounded by like-minded people. It is a wonderful environment to have places that we can go and recreate. I'm also very passionate about the speakers that have been speaking about the debris in the ocean and the fishing industry and the residents. And I think Robin also suggested that wouldn't it be nice if it was a more isolated place where they were doing this kinds of activity instead of adding to the already very busy space traffic location that you have in Florida. I am excited about space travel, but I'm also excited about staying on Earth and keeping Earth the way that it was intended to be. So I just wanted to throw my comments out and to support Eric for getting online and speaking for our whole organization. And I really hope that all these comments that are very, very important are highly considered and not just heard. So I thank you very much for your time and for this forum and for all the speakers who stepped forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, Garrett, I see your hand is raised. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Yes, this is Garrett Scrobot. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, Garrett Scrobot, resident of Brevard County since 1962. Been through the space program from all that time. I can say that I was a senior mission manager for NASA in the Launch Services Program, and I understand how SpaceX operates. One of my understandings is that the current EIS is for successful launches and re-entry and splashdown or however they land. However, I do believe that the 450 policy or the NEPA policy indicates that all phases of flight should be included in the NEPA policy. This should be included as stacking, fueling, ignition, and vehicle motion, and also if the vehicle explodes on the pad, which it has in the past at Boca Chica and also the Falcon 9 here in Brevard County. Also, we're looking at the analysis. You throw out a whole bunch of numbers out there on pressures and this, but we don't understand where the assumptions came from, the actual values of them. Are the analysis going to be released to the public so personnel with the ability to evaluate these analysis will be able to, as an independent verification and validation that the work the FAA has done is complete and correct. Also got in contact with the Wildlife Refuge. It's my understanding that there are 2,535 nesting turtles along the seashore where Falcon 9 is, and plan to launch the Heavy. When Mr. Max West said that the turtles need to leave, well, they were here before us, and they need to have their home. And that's the problem with our country today, is that we're tearing down our areas, and the animal has no place to go. Orlando has bears in people's front yards because that was their lot where they used to live. As respect to successful launches,
brother.
yes, SpaceX has had successful launches off Complex 40 with the Falcon 9. However, after 27 successful flights, they had an on-pad explosion, and that leads to the point before. Looking at road closures and park closures, that's a national park that is paid with our taxpayers' money. 70 launches plus 44 more is 114. The range gives 2 days. That's 224 days of potential closures of Playland Beach in the national park area. I agree with that. SpaceX ought to come in and take care of the Brevard County residents impacted by this and pay our property taxes. That was a good point. I really appreciate it. Real estate taxes. So with that, I'll conclude and give the rest of my comments to you guys postmarked before the 22nd. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, Abigail Miller, I see your hand is raised. I'm going to give you a prompt to unmute.
Hi, Abigail Miller, Abigail Miller, Miller. I live in Mims, Florida. We moved here in 2021, myself, my in-laws, and my parents, and both my children. I am happy to have the space program here. My son actually works for NASA. However, we bought our house in 2021, brand new, and I have cracks in my ceiling, and maybe some of them might be from settling. I'm pretty sure. So probably a lot of them are from vibration. This really does worry me, and if the noise becomes a problem or there are too many launches, we will leave. And unfortunately, there will be other people who will leave, and this will really affect the local economy. And I really hope that's not the case. I like living here and I like living in Titusville, but there are other people who can't leave. I do agree that there needs to be funds set aside to take care of those people who, maybe won't be able to sell their house because of issues of noise and environmental impacts that SpaceX has caused. They are a for-profit company, and I agree that the environment should definitely be taken in. The turtles, yes, they were here first. And well, that is all I have to say, and I just want to make sure it was on record.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your comments. All right, folks, I'm not seeing any other hands raised at this point. Again, we will not be taking any, providing any new or different information, but we will stay on the line until 8 p.m. Eastern to hear your comments. I see we have another hand raised. Fraser Howe, I'm going to give you a prompt to unmute.
Yes, my name is Fraser Howe. I live in Longwood, Florida. My name is spelled Fraserhowe. I'm a licensed professional engineer in Florida, and I managed a study with the Florida Department of Transportation to extend a bike and pedestrian trail out to the Atlantic coast through the Merritt Island Wildlife Refuge and Canaveral National Seashore. I'm concerned about the effects of this launch cadence at a spaceport in that location. Others have asked about alternative locations, and I'd like to have the results of this public hearing address whether or not Spaceport America, a purpose-built spaceport in New Mexico, has been considered for the SpaceX heavy Starship launches. That concludes my comment.
Thank you for your comments. All right, folks, again, we're not taking repeat speakers this evening, but if you have not already provided a comment and would like to make a comment, just use the raise hand feature located at the bottom of your Zoom platform, or you can press *9 if you've called in to raise your hand. Okay, I'll just pause for a moment to see if we get anyone else raising their hand that would like to provide a public comment this evening. All right, Deborah Ball, I see your hand is raised. I'm going to give you a prompt to unmute.
Hi, just a very quick question. Will this presentation and the follow-up questions be available for replay for us to go back and review and listen again at a later time? That's all.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. And I will put into the chat the FAA project website where the presentation is available, as well as other information about the project. We'll add that website link again to the chat in just a moment. I do see we have a call-in user ending in 9401 with their hand raised. I'm going to give you a prompt to unmute. Call-in user 9401. Call-in user ending in 9401. You're going to get a prompt. You'll push *6 to unmute.
Hi, my name is Diana, Diana Teal, Tango Echo Echo Lima, Teel. I live in Cape Canaveral and am very concerned about what's going on with the space program. thrilled with all of that that's happening with it. I understand being in space is the domain where we need to be from a defense perspective. As a homeowner, not thrilled with the location of all the launches. I'm like many of the homeowners that have spoken previously, experiencing the sonic booms is not fun or enjoyable or good for my health, I'm sure, or any of my family. And then what's happening to my home is of a lot of concern. So like most of us, my home is my biggest asset and very concerned about what's going to happen to it with the launches. Thought hurricanes were going to be the biggest concern moving to Cape Canaveral, but now it's the space program. So just wanted to have that publicly acknowledged. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. All right, we have a few minutes still remaining in our meeting. If you have not already spoken and would like to provide a verbal comment this evening, please raise your hand. If you've called in by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. Jonathan Matthews, I see your hand is raised. I'm going to give you a prompt to unmute.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Matthews, and that's JOHNATHANMATHEWS, and I want to thank you for taking my comment. I'm really excited about Starship launches at the Cape. Every attempt feels like rolling a cosmic dice, sometimes a 6, maybe a 7. But either way, it's progress, and it's good. From small hops to towering stacks rolling skyward, the aura of Starship only grows stronger. To me, Starship is like a mango. Sweet, juicy, sometimes messy, but always worth the effort. And of course, there are the mustard moments, unexpected splatters, tangy surprises. But that's just part of making history. You don't get to Mars without a little bit of laundry. Even reminds me of the days where you could get a barbershop haircut for just a quarter. Simple, bold, and you walked out feeling sharp. Except this time, instead of a haircut, humanity is styling its future for the stars. Now, I'll be honest, I do sympathize with the nudists at the nudist beach. As a former person without clothes, I understand their concerns about noise and privacy, but I also believe that there's a balance to be found, whether rockets and relaxation can coexist. And yes, there will always be a gooner or two saying it's too risky or too loud. But that's where the riz of the vision comes in, the confidence to say, tonight's the night, and actually mean it. And if anyone asks, Gork, is this true? The answer is yes. The truth is written in the flame, the thunder, and the steady progress of Starship. So I'm in favor of the launches. They're magnificent and exactly the good progress worth supporting. Thank you.
Which one of you was this?
Thank you for your comments. All right, our next speaker, I see Blair Wiggins. Your hand is raised. I give you a prompt to unmute.
Hey, you got me?
Yes, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Cool beans. Blair Wiggins, BLAIR, WIGGINS. I was a fishing guide here for many, many years, and I was guiding through the shuttle program. And I can tell you the impact that the noise and the vibrations and stuff it had from the shuttle program alone kept the fish shut down for a good day, day and a half in Mosquito Lagoon, Indian River, and Banana River. Not to mention every time it went up, the birds would scatter, they wouldn't come back. So you're going to impact duck hunters, you're going to impact all the fishing guides in Mosquito Lagoon, Indian River, and Banana River, and offshore and nearshore fishing guides by closing the waters when it launches. And also, I know a lot of guides. I was fortunate enough to travel around, and I fished in the area back there in Texas where the launch pad is now. And I can tell you the fishing guides out there, and there's quite a few of them, are dying for that place to leave. And they do not want SpaceX there anymore because of the environmental impacts that have gone on out there with the fisheries, the birds, and the habitat that goes on. The fish are basically disappearing for a while after the launch because of the sound. And if there's launches going up as frequently as proposed, you're going to be void of fish and wildlife here. And that's my O2. Plus, SpaceX takes little bits and pieces of the Space Center, just like they're dumping millions of gallons of fresh water into oyster prawn. I'm sure everybody's forgot about that, but everything that goes on out at the Cape is out of sight, out of mind. I worked out there for about 5 years and before I became a fishing guide. So just the impact of the fishing guides alone, and also the recreational fishermen out there, they might be for it now, but they try to get out and do some fishing and maybe some duck hunting, anything, boating, it's going to be tough out there. That's my O2. And, I hope it doesn't come here. It's going to impact way too much of the environment. I'm good.
Thank you for your comments. All right, Lisa Mickey, I see your hand is raised. I'm going to give you a prompt to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to comment on just the environmental impact aspect. I'm involved with 3 nonprofits here in Volusia County, and pretty closely associated with what's going on with things such as turtles and dolphins and manatees and shorebirds and various other waterfowl. Right now, well, as of last week, the turtle count in Canaveral National Seashore was 11,314 nests. So multiply that by 100 eggs per nest, and you understand how significant this habitat is. It's also 52 nests of shorebirds, which are a bird that has critical habitat concerns. The health of the estuary that runs through Canaveral National Seashore is the Indian River Lagoon. It's considered the most biologically diverse estuary in North America. There's more than 4,000 species out there. There's and the tourism that it attracts. People that come and take fishing guided tours, and people who take eco tours and kayak tours. This area generates a lot of money, a lot of tourism. The real estate value, I'm not a realtor, I'm not involved in the real estate industry, but I know that people buy houses and they're not cheap. And so I think when you talk about the just the animals that live here, the health of the estuary, the cleanliness of our beaches, the accessibility of our beaches to everyone, the attraction of Florida because of its diversity with various species and good weather in the winter months, there's a certain quality of life here. And those of us who live here, whereas, we're interested in the space industry, we recognize its importance to our economy. We also have to understand that, there is a certain quality of life that you want to have when many people spend their entire lives trying to get here to retire and live and enjoy, what's left of their golden years. I'd like to think that we all have something to look forward to. And I'd also like to think that the space industry is they're being good stewards in our very precious and, delicate environment here in this part of Florida. Thank you for your comments, for your time.
Thank you for your comments. All right, folks, we have a little bit of time remaining this evening. If you have not already spoken and would like to make a verbal comment tonight, just use the raise hand feature located at the bottom of your Zoom platform. Or if you called in by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. Again, folks, we have a few minutes remaining, and while we won't be presenting any new or different information, we will stay on the line until 8 p.m. Eastern to hear your verbal comments. If you have not already provided a comment tonight and would like to, just use the raise hand feature located at the bottom of your Zoom platform, or if you called in by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. Thank you.
This one is for House and RGV. Shout out to you. Starships were meant to fly, hands up and touch the sky. Let's do this. Let's do this one more time. Oh, starships were meant to. Hello? I'm just singing. Yeah. Sorry, that was my mom. Starships were meant to fly, hands up and touch the sky. Cancel this one last time. And so, ooh, that's a bad word. I can't say that one. Okay, let's listen in back to the silence.
As previously discussed, you can submit your comments electronically through www.regulations.gov using docket ID FAA-2024-1395 or through the U.S. mail addressed to Miss Eva Long, FAA Environmental Protection Specialist, care of Leidos, 2877 Guardian Lane, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23452. Please make note that the comment period does close on September 22nd of 2025. You may also subscribe to the project mailing list by visiting the project website at www.faa.gov/space/stakeholder-engagement/SpaceX-Starship-KSC. Hey, we know everyone's schedules are busy, so we really appreciate everyone joining us for the 5th and final public meeting here this evening. So thank you again for your participation. This meeting is now adjourned. Have a good evening.